Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to connect some dots that you might not think belong on the same map. We're talking about a brutal war in Sudan and simmering border tensions in Asia. The question is, what if there are actually two fronts in the exact same global conflict?
So, how on earth are these two things connected, right? Well, the analysis we're digging into today makes a really bold claim. It says they're not separate at all. In fact, they're two sides of the same coin, two fronts in a massive global power struggle.
All right, first up, let's head over to Sudan. What looks like a local conflict on the surface is, according to this analysis, being absolutely supercharged by a really intense regional rivalry.
Okay, so here's the situation on the ground. The analysis says the Rapid Support Forces, you'll hear them called the RSF, are making a huge play, and they've got the backing of the UAE. They're just hammering the last two army strongholds in the Kordofan region. We're talking intense drone and artillery strikes. The goal? To seize complete and total control of the area.
And you've got to understand, this is not just random violence. This is a cold, calculated plan. See, their first shot at taking the capital, Khartoum, completely stalled out. So the RSF pivoted. Now they're rolling out this multi-stage strategy, coming up from the south. The idea is to completely encircle the capital and then, boom, make that final push for the coast.
Okay, and this right here is where things get really international. This isn't just about the Sudanese army versus the RSF anymore. Nope. This has blown up into a full-on proxy war between two major competing blocs. You've got the UAE and Ethiopia on one side backing the RSF, and then on the other side you have Saudi Arabia and Eritrea doing everything they can to counter that influence.
So you might be asking, why? Why all this complicated maneuvering? Well, according to the source, it all comes down to geopolitics. Think about it. A friendly government in Sudan would be an absolute game changer for Ethiopia. It would create this huge security buffer for their massive and very controversial mega dam. But for Egypt, oh, it's a total nightmare scenario. It would completely sever their land route to that dam and put incredible pressure right on their southern border. We're talking about something that could reshape the entire power balance in the region.
All right, now let's pick up our chess piece and move it to the other side of the board, because this story is about to jump thousands of miles away, all the way to Southeast Asia.
So, what's happening here? Well, the analysis is pointing to some seriously escalating tensions between Thailand, a really solid U.S. ally, and Cambodia, which has been getting cozier and cozier with China. And the source suggests these recent flare-ups, they're no accident. They're happening with what's being described as a green light straight from Washington.
Now, to really get what's at stake here, you have to understand this term, the first island chain. The best way to think about it is like a massive strategic fence. The U.S. and its allies basically use this string of islands to box in China's navy and limit its access to the big open waters of the Pacific. So, what's the American play here? According to the source, the U.S. isn't just playing defense, they're on offense. The alleged goal is to make sure China can never break out of this containment. And how do you do that? You pull countries like Cambodia and Myanmar, which are China's potential escape routes to the sea, firmly into the Western camp. And this scorecard really lays out the whole game. You see, China is desperate to find a way around that critical choke point, the Malacca Strait. Their plan? Get a naval presence in Cambodia and build a land corridor through Myanmar. And what's the U.S. response, allegedly? Use its key ally, Thailand, to put the squeeze on them with both military and economic pressure to make sure those plans never happen. But the analysis points out a pretty big potential weakness in Beijing's strategy. It seems China hasn't really armed its ally Cambodia to the teeth. No modern fighter jets, no serious air defense systems. And what does that do? It leaves Cambodia wide open, totally vulnerable to pressure from the much, much stronger Thai military. And just when you think it couldn't get more complex, there's another, much shadier layer to all this. We're talking about these massive, Chinese-run scam operations based in Cambodia and Myanmar. The source says these criminal empires are worth an incredible $18 billion a year. So targeting these scam centers, that's not just about crime fighting, it's another powerful way to apply serious economic pressure. Okay, so let's pull the camera back. When you look at these two conflicts together, the one in Sudan and the tensions in Asia, what's the big picture? What does it all tell us?
But what this analysis argues is that both of these situations, Sudan and the Thailand-Cambodia clash, are textbook examples of modern proxy wars. The local fighters, the national armies, they effectively become pawns on a much, much larger chessboard. And the players? They're the big regional and global powers,
all competing for resources, for influence, and for that key strategic advantage. And this whole analysis really forces you to ask a pretty fundamental question, doesn't it? In our world today, a world that's so interconnected, with global supply chains and these huge competing spheres of influence, can any war, any conflict ever truly be a local issue anymore?
So, at the end of the day, for all the high-level global maneuvering, the source brings us back to a simple truth. Victory is decided on the ground. As the quote says, taking the land is one thing, but the real story is holding it. Being able to govern it, winning over the people, that is so much harder than just rolling in with tanks. And that, right there, is the real test for the powers pulling the strings in both Sudan and Southeast Asia. The question is, can their pawns actually hold the board?